your voice. Now it's your turn.
Hello and welcome to Your Turn. I'm your host, Nazi Javid. Here with me today is Dr. Saeed Mansour. He's the founder of the Islamic Society in Santa Rosa. Welcome.
Thank you.
You've been a guest on the show before, so glad to have you back.
Thank you for having me again.
Such a pleasure.
Thank you.
Today we're going to be talking about the conflict that's happening in Gaza right now. Very, very complicated issue.
Tragedy.
Yes, and lots going on, particularly right now in time here and all over the world. People protesting, just as we saw the other day in San Francisco. We had a lot of pro-Palestinian protesters on the streets because of the tragedy that's happening there right now. And, you know, a lot of us don't know all of the details, and you're an expert on this. So what exactly is happening? Break it down for us.
You know, I would call what's happening right away, honestly. I mean, the best description for it is Gaza today is a slaughterhouse. From watching the news and seeing what's going on, people have been slaughtered, and the world, unfortunately, is just overlookers. They're not doing much.
How many Palestinians have died?
So far,
Hundreds,
as
right?
of today, 680 people have been killed. Now, more than half of them are women and children. And more than 3,500 have been injured. And when I talk about injured, maybe more than half of them is maimed. In a place that is being under siege for more than 3 years. And when I talk about under siege, they have no basic supplies like food, medication, they have no electricity, they have no running water. So you can imagine the calamity here of so many people being injured, hospitals being shelled, being bombed, schools being bombed, and the latest of which was yesterday, of course, when the Israeli Air Force or artillery have shelled a United Nations school, killing 43 children and injuring about 150. It's a massacre. I mean, if you look at it, it's just been a massacre with children being cut into pieces, and the pictures are just horrifying, and you wouldn't imagine that a human being could do this to a human being.
The IDF will say that the reason that they, you know, for instance, the kindergarten, the reason that they have to target these areas is because Hamas strategically put themselves in these areas. What do you have to say to that?
First of all, I mean, it's not my words. I would take the United Nations representative word. I mean, he was on TV, and he refuted this 100%. Israel always uses this kind of accusations in order to justify its awful deeds. This is not new. Israel have done it in the past. Israel have done it throughout its history, 60 years of history. They have been doing massacre after massacre after massacre. And they always find for themselves an excuse. To me, I think, if I look at it, you know, for Israel, a good Palestinian is a dead Palestinian, even if he's a child. I think there is no other explanation for this. Killing children, infants, women, indiscriminately, I mean, I just cannot understand it other than outside, you know, this phrase which I use. A good Palestinian is a dead Palestinian. And I think it looks like that's their systematic policy from the day the State of Israel has been created, is cleansing the Palestinians. And every Palestinian, they look at it as an obstacle, and it has to be removed, in my opinion. I think that's the only explanation. The United Nations have refuted that, and it's a lie, and you wouldn't expect, you know, that they are so irresponsible to do that when there is hundreds of civilians sitting in that school.
Mm-hmm. You know, Israel's defense minister will say there are rockets coming into southern Israel from that both ways, and they won't stop their offensive until rockets stop coming into southern Israel. Where does it stop? Who is initiating all of this?
First of all, we have to understand that even when you talk about rockets, you cannot classify those as rockets. Those, in my opinion, are homemade.
It's not an airstrike.
They're not really. I mean, the Palestinians doesn't have. I mean, remember that Gaza is under siege from air, from sea, and from land. So you cannot even call them as rockets. One. Second, I think this, if they've been throwing these whatever projectiles, in my opinion, on Israel, it's because it's a desperate move. Hamas and the Palestinians have been under siege for 3 years, and the world has not been doing anything. And as I said, hundreds of people have died in Gaza over the last 3 years because they couldn't find medication. People are starving, people are not working, and people are desperate. And it was a noise, honestly. What the Palestinians are doing is just to create some kind of noise that, you know what, why you forget about us? How many Israelis have been killed in this whole projectile, whatever thing, you know?
Handful.
Not handful even.
Yeah. They will say that, you know, for instance, this morning and every other day, you know, the Israelis are doing a 3-hour daily, every other day truce to put in medical supplies and food for civilian Palestinians. What do you believe?
Well, we know. I mean, we have to go by deeds. We do not have to go by but what the Israelis say. I mean, before I came to the show, I came to understand that Israel now is bombing a whole strip of homes in part of Gaza. Have they let anything in? I doubt it. I've been watching the news this morning, and most of the Palestinian sources said it's not true. The only thing getting into Gaza now, a trickle of medication, even no food, no electricity, no water. And it's from Egypt, it's not from Israel. Israel doesn't want the Palestinians even to live, not just even to give them anything to
Israel will say that, you know, Hamas denounces their existence as well. So who is the right?
Well, I mean, it's not as simple as that. Yeah. It's not as simple as, okay, who recognizes who? I mean, if in order to answer that question, I think you have to go back to the root cause of this whole issue. And then you can understand why Hamas is doing what they're saying, and why and what is. It's not as simple as just saying it in a couple of words. But I'll be more than happy if I have the time.
Right now, you know, I would like to just first basically tell us who is Hamas, just so that everyone.
That's a good question. In fact, you remember the world wanted the Palestinians 3 years ago to go and vote democratically. January 2006. There have been very free, transparent elections in the Palestinian territories, in Gaza and in the West Bank. People voted, people had their say, and they decided to vote for Hamas, and Hamas won the majority. Now, they won the majority because they're not corrupt, because they have been doing a lot of social service.
Libraries, hospitals.
And look what happens. The next day, when Hamas won the elections, the US president, you know, denounces that. Bush came out and he said, well, Hamas is a terrorist organization according to his definition. And then Hamas formed the government. And then everybody in the United States, Europe, and Israel, of course, boycotted that government, and they had sanctions. They just sealed Gaza to the point, this is what I'm talking about. 3 years ago, Gaza is being under siege because they didn't like the Palestinians' choice.
I'm going to stop you right there. This is very, very heated conversation and very important topic, but we're going to have to take a quick commercial break. Stay with us. We're going to come back and talk more about all the conflict that's going on over there right now. Stay with us.